my theory is that it's part of the design. Whenever the population is just worn out, but also insecure, so that they have to go out and can't take a day to process or can't take a week to process, that makes the people like mentally dull as well. The jobs are few and far between. Since the administration took place, took office, there has been a study that said that at first it was 300,000 Black women alone in the
Yes.
U.S. That number is up to 500,000. And I think that number is still on the lower side because as I talk to people in real life who they might be working, but they're underemployed. The research has not shown it yet, but it will not surprise me if a couple of years down the line when we have an adequate sample size that we can see that stress is a huge contributor to that as well.
Wow. Wow.
I don't want you stressed now.
Yeah.
Like most of the day,
Yeah.
one of the things that I have to do, and I think we all should do, is just assume that we've been stressed. So now what can we
Okay.
do to be part of our routine to
Yes,
de-stress
to
ourselves?
de-stress. If I had $1 for every time I heard the phrase, "This is unprecedented," over the past few years, I would honestly have enough to work on this podcast full time. But for real though, there's so much happening globally, from outright wars to regional conflicts to economic uncertainty wherever you turn, and our bodies are responding even if we don't fully realize it. Whether we are impacted directly or indirectly, it feels like we're in a state of constant awareness with no real collective solution. So on today's episode, we'll be exploring what carrying all these events does to us, not mentally, but physically. I'll be speaking with Dr. Cassandre Dunbar, who is a medical doctor, an educator, as well as the creator and host of the Be Well Sis podcast, a podcast that explores what it means to be well physically, mentally, emotionally, and culturally. Very holistic. Dr. Cassandra has actually been on this podcast a few years ago where we discussed the mind-body connection. And so naturally, this feels like the next step from that conversation. This is a new phase of But What Do I Know? A space for honest conversations, lived experiences, and growth in real time. I'm Chidinma, and I am so glad that your curiosity led you right here. Dr. Cassandra, I am so happy to be talking with you again. It feels like it's been a while since we spoke, but at the same time, it feels like it hasn't been that long.
Yes.
Right? Because I was thinking about it actually just this past week when I was prepping for this conversation. Our last episode together formally was about like 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. Yes.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
what is time?
Right? But it feels like it was, I don't know, it feels like it was just yesterday, but at the same time, it feels like it was like 5 years ago.
I would have said like a year and a half is what I would
Right?
think, but not 3. Wow. Yeah,
Right?
time is wild.
And I was thinking about what we were talking about because at the time we were talking about the mind-body connection and just how what's going on in our physical bodies affects our mind and vice versa. And this feels like just the perfect like follow-up for that because,
Yeah.
I want this conversation to be focused more on our physical bodies, but
Mhm.
I'm sure we'll talk about that mental physical connection as well. So this will just be really, interesting for the listeners. So I encourage you, if you haven't listened to that episode, go and listen to it and then come back. And this will sort of feel like a part 2. Dr. Cassandra, I sort of wish that this conversation was happening on more happier terms, I
Yeah.
guess. But listeners, it's going to be a bit of a solemn one. We'll, of course, we'll infuse some joy into this conversation. We'll have some humor as we always do. But I want to start off with your post that you made several weeks ago, which sort of prompted me to want to have this conversation. It told me that you were the right person for this conversation right off the bat. But you had made this post, and I'll add it into our episode description so listeners can check it out. And you made this post where you were talking about how uncomfortable it was, how just strange it felt to post work and content that you were obviously proud of and
Yeah.
excited about, but it just felt like a girl, read the room sort of moment
Yeah, yeah,
at that time, and just how you were very emotional in that post. And I think we all sort of like felt it. People were commenting, and I know I felt it. It reflected something that I've been feeling for the past few months recently, but off and on since at least 2020, girl.
yeah. Yep, yep.
So I want to ask, what pushed you to share that video? Because I know it can be hard, especially as a creator.
Mhm.
So what pushed you to share that video, and what were you feeling at that time?
I'm not even sure what pushed because that's normally my not my typical content, right? Like, I usually just
Exactly.
keep it to the podcast stuff, maybe some informative things, but I'm not typically all that vulnerable on social media. I'm not sure what made me post that. I think I was just really feeling like this is where I'm at right now, and I feel so phony, and I feel so fake and not like I'm reading the room, and I wasn't sure if anybody else would feel it, but I felt like, "Let me be honest real quick and then see what happens, if anything," you know?
Mhm.
And I guess I'll give a little bit more context to those who,
Yes.
have not seen the post or whatnot. So I have a podcast called Be Well Sis, and one of my like dream guests I got a chance to speak to, and I was sharing the episode. The dream guest was B. Dixon, who is the founder of the Honey Pot. She also just wrote a book,
Yes.
a memoir called The Soul Instinct. So I was really happy about the conversation that we had. I was really happy about the episode, just how it turned out. And I went to share it. And I was just like, oh, at the same time, like, this is exciting. And I'm so happy that I got to check that off of my list, like my bucket list and podcast bucket list. But it felt like the world is on fire. Like, this
Girl.
feels so stupid. Like, girl, like, there's so much happening in the world at large than in the country that I live in. And then in my own personal life, it's just like, what are you doing? Like, this is dumb. Like, what are we all doing? Because I felt like
Mm.
at that moment, I think I had a meeting at work, and I'm just like, What are we talking about here? This is dumb." Like, there's real stuff happening in the world, and we're sitting here, like, talking dumbness. So I just shared it. It just happens to be on my mind. I just shared it. I think I just had a moment and then went back to it. I, like, put my phone away, and I came back, and people were just like, "No, I get it." And, yeah, I think we're
Mhm.
all, like, internally screaming, and we all sometimes feel like, "What are we doing here?" Like.
Yeah. Why do you think that specific event and moment kind of like affected you in that way? And just for additional context, that post was made shortly after, the US had taken military action. And not just the US, let me
Mhm.
specify, this current federal administration.
Yeah, the regime. Mhm.
Yes, had taken military action in Iran, and it had been weeks of seeing things occur in Cuba as well,
Mhm,
with the
mhm,
strangulation and their oil
mhm.
crisis. And in
That
January,
was
we saw the season of a leader in
in
Venezuela.
Venezuela. It's just been nonstop. Yep. And then on top of what's been happening here on our current soil too, with the ICE raids and ICE kidnapping folks. So it's just been one after the other, like really major things. And I feel like for the most part, I and other people try to like compartmentalize as best that we can. But it comes to a point where it's just like, okay,
Right. It's like I can't even compartmentalize anymore,
right.
you know? And that feeling, I remember when I watched that post, I was like, oh man, she is showing exactly what I've been feeling, because I started feeling like this again in when Trump got reelected again. But then last year, when the right wing media started talking about certain countries, and I'm Nigerian, and like Nigeria kept being brought up, and they were
Mhm.
talking, there was such right wing talking points were being brought up, lies, and just things. And I was also going to Nigeria, and I was like, if this man tries something while I'm like, there's just so
Mm.
much. And then you have friends from countries that are being impacted and
Yeah.
conversations are being had. And then
Yeah.
at the same time, I talked about it on this pod last year. I lost my job. And here in Canada, we are losing tens of thousands of jobs like every month. February, we
Mm.
lost 84,000 jobs. And I was like, we're a population of 30 to 40 million. Do you know what it means to lose 84,000 jobs? That's 84,000 people on EI.
Mm.
And I was just like, okay. And I have a friend who's been unemployed for about a year. Thank God I was able to find something after months. It took my brother a year to find his first job after
Mm.
graduation. So I've just been in this state of like, what is the world?
Right.
And I think I want to ask, like, all this has to be affecting our body, right?
Oh,
Like
for sure.
this has to be impacting us somehow. So how does our body, or how can our bodies respond to this sort of constant like news? Like, ding, okay, unemployment rates, ding, another military action, ding, this is happening.
Our bodies are constantly, I think you said it earlier, since 2020 essentially, right? We have been in constant fight or flight. And the nervous system is designed for short term. So acute stress is completely normal because think about our ancestors who were, discovering the world, maybe who lived in close proximity to animals and things like that. Like it's okay. And we're designed to properly manage acute stress. So if there is a damn tiger that jumps out the bush, like we're okay to like our bodies are equipped and designed to be able to get to safety. But again, short term. When we have compounded stresses, so we have the tiger here, we got bills due here, countries doing atrocities over there, we are not physically safe. You being Nigerian, I'm being Haitian, being Black women in general, like we just don't feel that safety. Our bodies don't have the time to properly complete the stress cycle. And what happens is that acute stress turns into chronic stress. Now, whenever we have chronic stress, that is where our bodies are doing their very best to maintain or to get back to homeostasis, which is like, our balance point, but
Hmm.
it can't. So that's where we have things like high blood pressure is going to occur. And we may not necessarily feel the high blood pressure. And that's why we call it one of the silent killers. People don't realize that, yes, diet plays a role with things like diabetes, but also chronic stress can also cause a spike in our glucose levels and our bodies being resistant to insulin. So these things that affect our entire bodies are consequences of long-term mismanaged stress. And sometimes it's not our fault. Oftentimes it's not our fault, right? The things that we named are mostly external. It's nothing of our doing. We're literally victims, right?
Hmm.
And because of the way that life has to keep going and our lives are pretty fast paced, we try to compartmentalize and we ignore the little whispers that our bodies are talking to us. And we just keep pushing through until it gets to a point where the body stops whispering and starts to scream. By the time the body is screaming, it's like, okay, we're in trouble. Then we could really feel the symptoms. We might be pretty far deep into whether it's high blood pressure or diabetes or a host of other things, cancers, things like that. And again, it's not our fault, but it's just a reaction to all of the unprocessed things that we're experiencing.
This world just keeps giving. Because,
Listen, listen.
like, I think it's so unfair that one, we don't get to process one thing before a next thing happens.
Uh-huh.
I think it is so unfair. And you can't blame one person. You have to blame the broader
The
system and
system,
society,
absolutely.
this
Yeah.
capitalist world that we are all just a part of. But it's like, how is it that we are hearing this news and we can't pause? We still have to go and work.
My theory is that it's part of the design.
It
Whenever,
is.
yeah, whenever the population is just worn out, but also insecure so that they have to go out and can't take a day to process or can't take a week to process, that makes the people like mentally dull as well. So now you're able to do all your fuckery.
It's absolutely fuckery because one thing that when I was thinking about this is part of the reason that in 2020 you saw people leaving their jobs,
Mhm.
you saw people starting creative ventures, you saw people making money the way they wanted to make money, you saw people rising up
Yeah.
globally from like
Mhm.
Nigeria, Congo, America, Canada, globally
Yeah.
in Britain. Like you saw people have the time to
Yes.
think. You saw
Yes.
people have the time to think. It slowed us down. There were reports about things happening, like we had made some improvements in terms of our environmental activity. Like
Yeah.
there was so much negative that came from that, and it is very unfortunate. But the amount of good that also came from that, and then even from like a job market perspective, it almost feels like the system is saying a big F you to the people that were able to leave their
Yes,
jobs and go start making money from social media and go and
absolutely.
start doing things, because now it feels like the complete opposite. Like, oh, in
Absolutely.
2020, you could leave. Now, girl, you can't even find a
Yes.
job. They're putting you through 5, 6 interview processes
Yeah.
before you land a new job.
Yep,
And
yep.
it almost like it's a consequence of that.
Yeah,
People who started
absolutely.
jobs are seeing that, okay, my side hustle, it was profitable 2 years ago. It's not so profitable now. I have to go back to a 9 to 5, and I'm almost being punished for the fact that I left in 2020.
Absolutely. I think what happened in 2022 was a couple of things. We were able to mobilize and do better for ourselves because we were talking to each other, right? So as we're talking to each other on social media, they're also listening. So we got empowered. We learned, different skill sets and how to transfer our skill sets to different industries and things like that. And they're like, okay, now y'all got comfortable. So now what we're going to do, we're going to do these massive downsizing of these huge companies who barely pay taxes, who barely, whatever.
Mhm.
So now, okay. And also on the side, people who were able to really change their lives on social media, at least in the US, for TikTok is it was huge, right? In
Mhm.
terms of making that like the creator economy in that sense. Now that TikTok is owned by a different entity, people aren't making the money that they used to make. They
Nope.
aren't necessarily able to sustain themselves where they used to. So now where do we go back to? We go back to these corporate structures that
Exactly.
the jobs are few and far between. Since the administration took office, there has been a study that said that at first it was 300,000 Black women alone in the US.
Yes.
That number is up to 500,000. And I think that number is still on the lower side because as I talk to people in real life who they might be working, but they're underemployed. Like they may be crazily overqualified for what they're doing now, but it's what it pays the bills, barely. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah, so all of this is just a direct consequence for sure. Not all of it, but a lot of it.
Yeah. And I hate it. Like, for every push, there has to be a pull. For every pendulum swing, it has to, even just this current administration, the current push in the right wing, the current go back to where you're from and
Mhm.
go back to work and fill the great downtowns, leave your house, don't work from home. It's like, damn, do you want me to be a slave?
Corporate America is like the modern day plantation.
Yeah.
Like, it is the
Yeah.
same. It is the same. And they're even kicking us I think the bigger plan why so many Black women specifically have been kicked out of the workforce has not just been it's been to get us back into other roles where maybe we're doing domestic work that, our mothers and grandmothers did and things like that. Like, they're really trying to
Mhm. Man. Yeah, it's so crazy. And then on top of all this, you're just supposed to, like,
continue on like nothing's happening.
exactly. And what's very alarming is I want to go back to what you talked about with, the stress. I think it's crazy that unbeknownst to us, we're thinking about all these things, compartmentalizing, trying to balance, creating harmony, and our bodies are just going through and processing all of this as stress. Like, that
Yes.
is so scary to me. And the number of young people that I've heard pass away in the last year by things that doctors couldn't explain. One of my uncles, young, my aunt was talking to my mom a few weeks ago. He passed. He was watching a video on his phone and he just passed.
Oh my god.
One of my colleagues, he went home. They said he went to the doctor's office the day before. Then the next day, his roommate said he had passed.
Oh my
Like,
god.
but
I'm so
he
sorry.
wasn't feeling well. And then he went to doctor's office. So I'm like, and there's another, like, not too close to me, but in the community of Black
Mhm.
women that I know here in Toronto that has passed. Like, and it's so crazy, and that's part of the reason I wanted to have this conversation is because there's so much, and on top of that, it's like, care for yourself, care for yourself. With all this happening, we also aren't thinking about
Yeah.
taking care of ourselves, and even the taking care of yourself that's shown to us is so outward based.
Yeah.
It's not go and check your stress levels every quarter,
Right. No.
you know?
No, daily. Yeah, for sure.
That is so crazy. Oh,
Yeah.
man.
I'm so sorry for your losses. That's quite a bit to process for yourself too, you know what I mean? Like the seeing the people around you pass away when they weren't like in their elderly years. Cause even that's hard, right? But seeing young people, it's like, ooh, I got a Aura ring. I was like, well, I want to really manage like my sleep. Like, how does my sleep actually look? Cause I wake up every day just exhausted. One of the things that it also manages, though, is stress. So it's
Mm.
interesting because some days, to your point, I'm like, okay, today was a good day. And I look at the app, and then the app's like, girl, you were stressed like
No
8 hours out of the day.
way.
I'm just like, I felt like today was actually okay. So it reminds me that I think so many of us, this has become our normal. Think
Our
about
normal.
since our adulthood, it has been something. Like we have
Mhm.
not had it, like we have not had smooth sailing, you know? There's been whether an economic crisis, there's some like international crisis that impacts us at home. Like there's just been something. Think about just the past, is it 5 or 6 years now? 6 years now since
Mm.
COVID, right? There's
Mhm.
been boom, something right
Yes.
after the other. And now we think our baseline, what we think our normal is actually we're under stress. We just don't realize it.
Right.
It's who we are. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And to your
Yeah.
point, one of the things that I've been noticing has been the rise in folks who have been diagnosed with like advanced stage colon cancer. And that's been something that's been really
Okay.
present on my mind. I think I mentioned this the last time I was on the pod too.
Yes, you did. So it's only gotten worse, girl, in like
Worse to worser, okay? Like, yeah, it's like young people, like 30s, like stage 4 cancer, like what? Colon cancer? Because that typically used to be when I was in medical school, we think 50 and plus is who we're really thinking about colon cancer screenings and things like that for, not 30s, you know? And I think the research has not shown it yet, but it will not surprise me if a couple of years down the line, when we have an adequate sample size, that we can see that stress is a huge contributor to that as well. Of course, our diets don't help, but
right. Could you explain, of course, you mentioned we don't have like adequate research, but could you explain how stress could contribute to that?
so whenever we're talking about stress, like on the cellular level,
Yeah.
stress causes the cell to not be able to do whatever its job is properly. Okay.
Mm.
So think about, okay, our digestive system. Our digestive system, those cells are rapidly replicating because
Yeah.
they die, they need to be replaced.
Yeah.
So whenever a cell is under chronic stress, it's not going to undergo the cell cycle properly. So that means that
Right.
whenever there are any errors in the cell trying to replicate to make a new cell, those errors that typically would be caught is not going to be caught. It's going to continue. It's going to keep going down the line. We'll say the assembly line
Ah,
of new cells, and that cell may be potentially a cancerous cells. And cancerous
right.
cells are especially just nefarious because they do their own thing. Like they are the program now. So they are
Wow.
going to take over the nutrients of the other cells. They're going to continue to replicate themselves and then just starve out the other cells. So stress plays a role because now the cells aren't able to properly regulate themselves. So
Mm.
it's that deep, even at a cellular level, like, you
Yeah, even
know?
at, like down to the smallest cell.
Yes.
You also talked about high blood pressure, and that's one that I know we often talk about when it comes to stress. Like we even been
Mhm.
joking for like we're just like, oh my god, my blood pressure is going up.
Yeah.
Could you explain that? Because I'm sure there's a listener
Sure.
who's listening wondering, like, girl, like what is
Like
the
how?
connection between stress to my high blood pressure?
Yeah. So whenever we are under stress, let's talk about like acute stress. So again, let's just say you smell smoke, right? So you're like, oh shoot, is there a fire somewhere? Let me find where the fire is. What's happening is now your adrenal gland is going to release a ton of adrenaline and noradrenaline.
Mm,
Okay. Those substances are going to cause for your heart rate to increase and how much blood your cardiac output is going to be increased because of those things as well.
right. So
So
that's
it's
your heart beating faster.
heart beating faster and harder. Sometimes you could feel it. Like
Okay.
you feel like
Yeah.
the boom, boom is because your heart is literally doing much more work and faster, which is fine for short term. But now, if we have long term stress, those chemicals are still in the body in excess. So
Ah,
now our heart rates are going to maintain being a little bit elevated a longer time than necessary. Our cardiac output may be elevated longer than necessary. And it's going to
wow.
just lead to a cascade that is just
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Just
just
overactivity.
overactivity with no time to rest to allow for the heart and everything to reset and go back to its baseline. So essentially what happens, let's just say if I have a terrible like full year that just sucks, right?
Mhm.
My cardiovascular system, so let's just say my baseline, my heart rate was like 60 beats a minute. That was my
Okay.
normal.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
now if I'm like chronically stressed and I have no way and I have not just done the work to de-stress myself or to resolve the stress cycle, now my heart rate the new norm might be 80 beats per minute or maybe even 100 beats per minute. And how hard my heart is working has also elevated and stayed there. Now my body
Wow.
thinks, okay, this is our new normal. We're going to stay right here. And now your heart
Ah.
is working extra hard and that's your new normal now, you
And
know?
it
Well,
never goes back.
it never goes back because the body tries so
Hey.
hard to fix it. If it can't fix it, it thinks, okay, well, this is where we're at now. So it doesn't go back. Because now, especially if you're adding genetics to it. So if you come from a population or a family who is predisposed to doing things like retaining salt, that is only going to
Right.
exacerbate it. So a lot of us who are descendants of West
Yes, I
Africa.
was gonna say West Africa,
Yep,
Caribbean.
yep. One of the reasons why our ancestors were able to survive the Middle Passage was because we retained salt. You retain
Mm.
salt, you retain fluids, but now you will misappropriately retain salt and fluids if you are chronically stressed as well. So it's just a recipe for disaster.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Hey. Wow. Wow, 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 wow.
I don't want you stressed now.
Yeah.
And I think going back to me getting the little ring that I have, because I was like, well, I had a good day. And I look at the app and it's like, girl, you've been stressed like most of the day. One of the
Yeah.
things that I have to do, and I think we all should do, is just assume that we've been stressed. So now what can we do
Okay.
to be part of our routine to de-stress ourselves? So take a walk, being in nature does a ton for us. Like we as humans, especially here in the US, Canada, we kind of have separated ourselves from nature, but we literally like are designed to be out there.
Mhm.
So what seeing greenery does for us, what just moving our bodies does for us is huge. Prayer, meditation also plays a huge role. I've been doing this challenge where I'm trying to meditate for 75 days straight. The days that I meditate, my heart rate is so much better. And it's only 15 minutes too, and my stress
Okay.
levels are lower and I'm tracking it on the app. So even though
Mhm.
I may not physically feel it per se, the numbers don't lie. So
Yeah.
I've told myself that I have to make it part of my own routine, even though I may feel like I had a beautiful day and I'm not stressed at all. Do
Yeah.
something to make sure that I try to replenish myself in some way.
Yeah, that's real. I want to go back a little bit because there's something that we didn't talk about, but I feel and I think it's probably a physical manifestation of, stress and carrying all of this as well is even if we just isolate like economic activity and like job, we were talking about like layoffs and all that stuff, right? When I look at pictures from last year
Mhm.
when I lost my job and I was like applying for for 10 jobs a day,
Yeah.
I can just see the stress on my face.
Oh, for sure. For
Like,
sure.
is there a medical term for that? You can just kinda see, like, my face obviously, there were days where I was crying a bit, so I was a little bit puffy. I felt like my face was, like, a little bit rounder. I
Mhm.
just you
That's
can just
real.
see it, and even with I have a
Yes.
friend that's navigating that, it feels like there's, like, low energy, motivation levels, the way we relate to our
Yes.
bodies. So that's a
Yes,
thing.
absolutely. So I mentioned the acute stress. Whenever we move into chronic stress, so long-term stress, is less adrenaline and noradrenaline that is coursing through our bodies. Now,
Mhm.
who enters the chat is cortisol. Cortisol is our
I know
chronic stress
cortisol.
hormone.
Mm.
Yes. So whenever we're spending weeks, months stressed out, our cortisol levels are much higher than usual. Cortisol is going to cause a couple of things. It's going to cause for our bodies to raise our sugar levels. Okay, so whether or not we're eating, okay, it thinks that well we're starving. We need to make sure that we have energy to sustain us. So we're going to have higher sugar levels, which is why it's really common that nothing has changed, right? Like diet is the same, activity level may be the same, more or less the same, and people may start to put on weight. Completely normal. It's also going to impact our
Right.
fat distribution. So we might see like the rounder faces. We might see more fat in the abdominal area. Really, really
Right.
common because of the action of cortisol. Again, cortisol is a chronic stress hormone. The body is trying to help, but it's not helpful. So really, really common that you can
Right.
see the changes in our faces as well. Yeah.
And I feel like this is why even when you hear from some like personal trainers or people who are like fitness experts that if your body is under stress, you doing strenuous exercise actually doesn't help you lose the weight. You actually need to like walk. Yeah.
Yes, right. Low impact and also sleep is so important. And it's unfortunate that a lot of times whenever we are really stressed, that we're not going to get that great of a sleep, but it's
Hmm.
super important to try to sleep because again, the cortisol plays a huge role in sleep as well. You may have heard a lot of times people are talking about magnesium, magnesium, magnesium.
Yes, my mom's a pharmacist, so yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
cortisol depletes magnesium. Magnesium plays a huge role in our ability to fall asleep and stay asleep. So it's all interconnected. And then going back to the trainer, so whenever we are working out and we're trying to do something different with our bodies, it's not going to take if we're not sleeping. Like the body is like, I need to replenish. So all the things you're doing in the gym are great, but like I need time to like really replenish. How do we
Right,
do that? Restorative sleep. So sleep also
right.
plays a huge role.
Yeah, I heard a lot from the health and fitness girlies. It's the trifecta. It's what you're eating, sleep, and then the gym. And like you kind of
Yes.
need all three of those to
Yes.
be like at optimal
Yes.
physical health. So
Yeah, yeah.
wow, cortisol. Like I've heard about cortisol, and you hear about like the cortisol belly or like
Yes.
cortisol stress levels, but I didn't know that that's how it actually.
Yep.
Huh.
Yep, it is.
Interesting.
Yep.
So I want to kind of get into what we can do, that kind of stuff, because I'm sure there are people who are listening thinking, Cassandra, Chid. All
It's a
right.
wrap.
Yeah, yeah. Why don't we get into the good part? So, you talked about a couple of things that you're doing, and we'll get there, but how do you even know if your stress levels have been like dysregulated or if you're going through like chronic stress or if you're just sort of thrown off a little bit? Like, are there physical tells?
There are, but Imma say this, likely because of the world that we live in,
Girl.
you are more stressed than usual to
Yeah.
some extent, you know? But the physical tells, you mentioned one of them. How do we physically look? Like, if you took a picture of yourself, or if you look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, "Oh, I don't quite recognize myself," that's your body talking to you, you know? Do our eyes look more sunken in and darker underneath? Our faces, are they rounder? Going back to sleep, am I having a hard time of falling asleep and staying asleep where sleep used to not be a problem for me? Food cravings also tell us a lot. So, am I somebody who is now I'm craving tons of maybe sweeter things or maybe even savory things? If I'm craving a lot, even though I know I just ate, like what is that telling me as well?
That's a thing too?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. So, going back to sleep. So, whenever we are sleep deprived, we are more likely the next day to crave unhealthy things.
The
It's
more
all
you
together.
know.
Yeah, it all goes together. Yeah.
Wow. That is so interesting.
Because what happens with sleep is this is where our body kind of resets, right?
Mhm.
So our electrolytes kind of reset themselves in a way. Things kind of like help to normalize. So if we're not getting good sleep, our bodies aren't able to restore themselves. So the next day, we're going to have these cravings that aren't actually going to address the problems, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So those are some things. Of course, mood is also going to be a telltale. So are
Yeah.
you more irritable now? Are you foggy? You know, if you used to be really
Brain
sharp and now you're just like, oh,
fog.
I don't remember what I'm doing here. I don't remember what I read or what my to-do list. Like those things are also going to play a role. That's going to be a key, I should say, a sign that you're more stressed than usual.
Yeah, that's a really big one because I think a lot of us right now, especially because our outlet for stress are things like scrolling.
Listen, which adds
Y
to the stress. Okay.
Yeah, which can add to the stress and it reduces your, like, mental or brain sharpness, so this is
Yes.
yeah.
Yep. But yeah, it's all connected. It really is.
Wow, that's so sleep you mentioned, you gave some really good ones, and I think even the physicality of it, like the face, I didn't realize it because that's the thing, sometimes you don't catch it in the moment, especially
Yeah.
because, I've always grown up being told, "Oh, you're one you've maintained your weight, you look a certain way, and then as you start to go through that second wind of puberty, you're like, okay, I'm getting a little bit of weight. Okay, it's sitting in certain places.
Mhm.
But like last year, I'm only looking at it now. When I'm looking at
Now.
back, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh wow,
Yeah.
no, no,
No.
no, there were some
Yeah.
things occurring.
Of course, hindsight, right? And also
Yeah,
when you're in it, like, you may not be able to have the clarity to recognize it because you're going through
exactly.
so much, right?
But yeah, so those are sort of the signs that we can tell, physically. Now I want to get to the things that we're gonna do to try to regulate the stress levels, try to
Mhm.
try to get ourselves to, I guess, some sort of good equilibrium, if you will,
Yes.
right? And you
Yes.
talked about it. I think, Aura, if you want to sponsor us, if you want to sponsor Be Well Sis and
Oh,
the What
that's
Do I
right,
Know,
please.
we are here. Cassandra
Okay.
got hers. I will be getting mine.
Okay.
We are now sharing this with our listeners, and we got lots of them. So hey,
Okay.
but it sounds like that's a good tool to have, something to sort of track our body.
In full disclosure, I've only had it for, like, has it been a month? Maybe, like, a little over a month. So I don't have, like,
Okay.
all the data quite yet. I'm still trying to get,
Okay.
trying to figure it out. But honestly, I will say honestly, if you are in this period of time and if you are even just a little bit aware of what's happening in the world, you're stressed, because it's not even just the world, it's also our own personal worlds, right? We all have
Yes.
stuff happening within us and then in our
Yeah.
families, at work. So there's always a lot that we're managing. I would say the first thing is to remember that you have 1 hour for yourself. That is not too much to ask. You deserve at minimum an hour of something just for you. I don't care how many tasks are on your to-do list, you have time for you. Those things, they can wait. An hour you deserve to give to yourself. And that hour, whatever you do with it, does not have to look like what the next person's doing or what they're doing on social media. Like, who cares? What feels good to you, you know? It cannot be scrolling, I'm sorry,
I was gonna
because
say,
scrolling
what if
makes
that
things
scrolling
worse.
feels good though?
No, you gotta put that phone away for an hour. You can do it. You can
Yeah,
do it. At
yeah.
minimum, an hour. But do you like to color? Do you like
Mm.
to exercise? And it doesn't need to be like CrossFit or anything too extreme or extraneous. Like, it could be literally a walk. It could be yoga. It could be Pilates. It doesn't have to cost money either. We have YouTube, which has
Yes.
a ton of content. It could be dancing in the mirror. It could be prayer, meditation, reading a book that is not necessarily for you to learn something. It is just for you just to read for pleasure,
Just to read. Yeah, yeah.
So figure out what it is that you like. And if you're just like, girl, I have no idea, think about what did 8-year-old you like to do and go back to that. Because honestly, we're all just kids to some extent who have grown up a little bit. So go back to that, but give yourself an hour at minimum because you deserve that.
Yeah. No, I love that because I I have an adult coloring book that's sitting on my nightstand collecting dust, so I will be getting back to that.
Yes.
Because I was doing that. I was doing so well, and then somewhere along the line we fell off, and you've reminded me. So tonight we will be coloring.
Yes.
Even like the Black romance authors have been putting out such good content,
Okay.
and I love it. I was like, I'm kind of capped at my book expenditure right now, but I like self-help. I love a good, self-improvement, talk me through your journey, but I just love when I can just enter a story and escape into a different world and, the main character's getting loved on,
Exactly.
because
Exactly.
thank you.
Exactly.
Okay. I
Yes.
get to just
Right.
take my mind off things for a little while. So I love that. I
Exactly.
really do. And a
Exactly.
good
Same.
walk.
Mhm.
And I love that you said like an hour just for yourself. We can do it. I think the world just it makes it seem as if you can't, especially if, now with work from home being a
Yeah.
rare thing now again. They're forcing us into that. And then with your commute time, your prep time for the next day, it's getting harder. But I think between that like 7 to 10 window, you can find like 1 hour for yourself
Yes.
to do
Yep.
something.
Yep.
you
And
know?
I'll say this too. You mentioned that you used to color and now it's
Yeah.
collecting dust. I think there's also seasons too. So maybe right now
Right.
the season is coloring. Maybe the next season is doing something else, gardening. I don't
Yeah.
know, you know?
Right.
Because I used to feel like, well, I need to be doing this specific thing. And it's like, no, that's not true. Like, we are dynamic people, so we can do different things. But as long as it's
Yeah.
something that is like refilling us and replenishing us, is
Yes.
what matters. The matter of the thing, it's like that it is giving back to ourselves.
Exactly. Honestly, something I'm really looking forward to this spring and summer is exploring Toronto, but, like, doing it
Mm,
in a cool way. I don't have to spend money, but I have a list of things because
I love
for as
it.
long as I've lived in the GTA, I haven't really explored a
Like
lot
the
of
tourist
things.
stuff.
Yeah. So I'm like, you
Mhm.
know what? I want to go to some cool neighborhoods, try some things, go see some cool things. Like there's some parks that I haven't been to. And now, you can do like picnics in the parks. I think you can
Yes.
even like have a little wine in the park now that's legal here. So I'm looking
Yes.
forward to doing some of those things this spring and summer that aren't gonna break the bank, but they'll just make me
Yeah.
feel like, "Whew," like, you're
Yes.
living.
That's the point, living. So many of us are doing the things, like, we're checking off the list, like, we go to
Yeah.
work, we pay the bills, like, "Okay, great," but this cannot be it, you know what I mean?
Yes,
Like,
yeah,
what brings me joy? What makes me feel alive and happy to be alive? Go do that thing. So, yeah.
yeah. No, I love that. I think I wanna wrap up this conversation with this question for you, and this isn't even really more so like a medical question. It's very much existential, girl, because this is just where I'm at. And this is
Okay.
sort of my, but what do I know, if you will? It's something I'm struggling with. But as someone who, we're such empathetic people, like we deeply feel all these things that are going on. How do you balance feeling the things, taking in the news, wanting to be a better, more responsible human living, and still, like my people say, I cannot come and kill myself. You
Yeah.
know, like, and because it honestly, like, there were like a couple of weeks ago when I was just taking in so much of it. It was actually affecting my sleep. Like I
Of
like in my
course.
sleep, I was having thoughts about like, oh my God, girl, like how is this happening? What's doing this? And then even after my trip to Nigeria, like I had such a good time. But you just become deeply aware that, whoa, if the economy in the West is bad, imagine how other countries. So then I came and I was like, well, what are the economy doing? How are they doing back home? Is the money get?
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa. And I actually had to stop. I had to kind of pull back a little bit.
Yeah.
And so it's something that I wrestle with. I think I'll have months where I'm on, I'll have months where I'm off, and I'm a little bit more selfish, if you will. But I just want to know like how you're doing this, you know?
Okay, I'll be 100% honest. I'm not doing a great job at it, but I've thought about this a lot because my oldest is 11. And my oldest, I forget what we were talking about in the car because we have a kind of a long commute for me to get him to school and back.
Hmm.
And he was having like these existential questions to him. Just like,
Oh,
fuck, he's
wow.
11. And that scares me. He's also a very big feeler and a very deep
Oh,
thinker.
oh, I
And he
love
was just like,
that.
what is the point of this? And that scared
At
me.
11?
At 11, 'cause the child is scared about he's not scared, but he's very concerned about AI in terms of what will he do as a profession. I said,
Well,
"Shit."
he might have to be the next guest on the podcast because I'm not sure
Oh,
because,
man. Oh,
oh
man.
man,
He was like, I need like an AI, safe job. I'm just like, babe,
proof
you're 11.
career.
You're not in high school yet. Like, but anyway, so I thought about it because I was really concerned. I was so nervous. I didn't have an answer for him at the time. But I talked to my husband and I also did some research and they were saying how what the best thing to do is to do something for somebody else.
Mm,
So what I told him in the moment before I got home and could process myself was just like, you can't change the world, but you can
yeah.
change your world. Like you're part of,
Mhm.
our world as a family. You're part of your school community, your school world. So how do you show up in those spaces? How can you be
Yeah.
your best self to like really help somebody else in whatever you're good at? How can that be a blessing to somebody else?
Mhm.
So that's something that we have been working on. So he also has one of his requirements to graduate from middle school is to have like a community project that
Yeah, I
lasts
love
the
that.
entire year. So we've decided we're going to work with this. the community that helps unhoused people like shower and wash their clothes, like so they have like their dignity and things. So
Yeah.
he liked that idea. So I'm like, that's what we're gonna do. How can we help our worlds? Because he was like, his issue was that like everything sucks and the bad guys are winning and we can't change it. I said, I get it. That's a fair assessment. But I'm gonna say what you can do is change your own little world, and that could cause a ripple effect.
Mm-hmm.
So I know one of the things that I think for a long time I realized about myself is that whenever I'm feeling really, really down, I find somebody to help. Like,
Oh,
so I would tutor, like if
yeah.
I knew somebody was struggling in class, like, and I understood that subject, I'm like, come study with me. Like, I will
Mm,
teach you the material. Like,
yeah.
and that made me feel a little bit better. So I think that's just how we are as humans. So
Mm-hmm.
figure out what it is that you can do for a little bit to
Yeah.
contribute to your little world, and it makes you feel better and like you have
Yeah.
some power, because I think a lot of us are feeling this overwhelming sense of powerlessness.
Exactly. You feel
So
so powerless, so hopeless. Like, I didn't
mhm,
contribute to this bad.
and I'm
And
impacted by it.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly,
Yep.
exactly. No, but I really like that. And yeah, it's been something I've just been thinking about and my dad always says, like, you take care of yourself,
Hmm.
that's one less person in the world to be taken care of. When you take care of
That's
yourself, then you can
true.
take care of someone else, right?
True. True.
And he's always just telling me, like, he's like, "Ada, take care of yourself for me. Like, make sure that you are okay." And I'm like, "Okay,
Yeah.
dad." Like, so I definitely am gonna sort of just take what you just said with me, especially this week, because yeah, it's a
Yeah.
lot. It's a
It's a
lot. And
lot.
I definitely like for some time I was like, girl, is there an uncolonized piece of land somewhere that I can
Listen.
go to?
Listen, listen, I've been feeling like this grief for a while of like not being able to go back to my like ancestral home, like because Haiti is just a mess right now.
As someone who's Haitian, I think you get it because a part of it for me is like I can always like I feel myself clenching like don't ruin my home. Don't ruin my
Mm,
home. Please.
mm,
Please, please, please. It's the one like
mm.
I could still go to my parents' village. I could still
Yeah,
have their garden. They have a farm. Please just keep that for
yeah,
me?
yeah. That's
So when you
real.
said that, I was like, oh
Mm,
my God, that's what I'm feeling. That's where my angst comes from. Is because I think a lot of us that are
sure.
here, we feel like, oh, well, I could still run. But if you take that away too,
There's where to?
yeah.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
feel so like I hear what you're feeling so deeply, you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
I have a lot of
Oof.
Haitian friends that are like, I like, y'all done fucked
Yeah.
up my country. Like, I want to go
Bad,
back, you
bad,
know?
bad. Yeah, I feel like especially this generation, like our parents, a lot of them came to America, were like, we're going to raise our kids, stack up, and go back home. I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of our parents have like given up on that journey. At least my mom is just like, there's nowhere to go to. And my generation is just like, no, maybe we want to go back and see if we can fight the good fight and bring
Yes.
our knowledge and our resources and just like fix it.
Yeah.
But
But it's
the
also it's
powers
a
that
lot.
be.
Exactly. Exactly. How can you go home and fight when some of the governments there are also the enemy of progress? So
Hello,
that's the
hello,
thing.
hello, and are in the
Yeah.
pockets of the United States. So,
Exactly, exactly. But we'll end it there. Thank you so much,
yeah,
Cassandra.
thank
Like,
you.
I think this conversation, it does feel like I wanted this to feel like a hug. This is also our season opener for this year. So I'm so appreciative of this because I think this kind of sets the tone for the conversations that we'll have this year. I hope this feels like a warm, like, embrace for our listeners as well, and I'm actually gonna enjoy listening back to this conversation, like, I know I will feel uplifted, so I hope that someone listening to this also feels that same way, and I really do appreciate you, for real. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you for
Yeah.
having me. It's always a pleasure.
Yes, yeah, before, I let you go, please just share, your socials, Be Well Sis, where people can connect with you and listen to the
Yes.
podcast.
So Be Well Sis is on every podcast player, so Spotify, Apple Podcasts. And then on YouTube, we are really trying to grow our YouTube presence. We've been working on it for about a year now, so I would love for you to join us over there. I'm on Instagram, so Be Well Sis _podcast. So please find us there. I love to hear from you guys. So I'd love to hear what are your takeaways from this episode. Send a DM, all the things. I answer all my DMs. So yeah, I would love for you to, also be part of this community as well.
For sure. Yes, of course. So listeners, go ahead. Make sure you're listening to Be Well Says All of the information she just shared will be in this episode description so that you can go ahead and connect with Cassandra as well. But yes, thank you so
Yeah.
much again. And
Thank you.
you already know you are an honorary member of this podcast. You'll be back.
I hope so. I gotta have you back on mine too. Yes.
Yes, for sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're at the end of today's episode. I truly hope that our conversation with Dr. Cassandra just encourages you to reflect on what your body may be carrying at this time. Listen, please go ahead and share this conversation with that friend who you know is just struggling with her personal life, but also just is having a hard time dealing with the constant state of bad news. Go ahead and share it with her, share it in the group chat, share it with your community. And we also want to know how you are doing and coping at this time. So please share with us on socials. It's at BWDIK Podcast, specifically on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And if you want to let us know how you're doing, but you're not on socials, feel free to send us an email. It's connect@BWDIK Podcast. And finally, make sure that you are subscribed wherever it is you listen to or watch the podcast. Be well and keep living.